We'd like to welcome you to the first episode of the Sportsman's Voice, a show that we're putting here, a podcast that we're putting on to welcome people to this intersection of hunting, fishing, and politics, and how this combines and what we can do to improve our life here in the Midwest, specifically Northeast Wisconsin, but also the entire state. And we're very excited to bring this as something I'm very passionate about. And my name is Ken Sikora. I live here in Northeast Wisconsin, a little north of Green Bay. And this is a brand new concept that I'm very excited to put out, built around the idea that fishing and hunting is what drives our area, our industry, and things haven't always gone as we anticipate. And we'll be talking about the whys, the hows, how do we fix this, what do we do to improve it, who can help us in those different areas, and we're very excited about this. This is something I've dreamed about for a long time doing, and it's a little bit out of my comfort zone sometimes and what I've done in the past, but I think going forward that we're going to bring you guys some great information on those outdoor sports as far as updates on a regular basis, whether it be fishing updates, hunting updates, bear hunting, outdoors, sporting clays, you name it. We're going to be working on all this and tying that into how we improve it politically. Who are the people that can help us? How do we make this better? How do we take the things that we love in Wisconsin and get them to where we want them to be and take it back to where it used to be, I guess would be the best way to say that. So once again, my name is Ken Sikora. I'll go through my story as I get into this, how we got here, and I'm very excited to bring this to you guys. So the first question behind the why we came here, why I moved here 14 years ago, how I ended up in Wisconsin. Let's kind of tell this story a little bit. So I grew up in southern New Jersey, which for those of you not familiar with that area, it is a very outdoorsy area. It's not typically what people think of New Jersey. Southern New Jersey is very hunting and fishing acclimated. That's a huge part of the industry in that area. So as a young person being in the woods, being on the water, I was very familiar with. Grew to have a huge love of the outdoors, even though I grew up in a family that wasn't hunters or fishermen. So it became part of my whole life. Hunting season in southern New Jersey is very much like Wisconsin. We have the buildup, the week before, all the sporting goods industry businesses are packed, and then Friday nights meet with your friends, meet with your buddies, get out there and do and start talking about the hunt on gun season, and very much similar. So I understand a lot of what we did. Moving to Wisconsin was not a big change for me. So when I was 19 years old, I had a good buddy of mine that I grew up deer hunting with, and he got transferred to Chicago, Illinois, and worked in an office and met a guy from Northeast Wisconsin that had a cabin in Eagle River. And this guy came up here and did a hunt one year and got home, and he was so excited to tell me about this awesome place, Wisconsin. And I'm ashamed to say I really didn't even know where Wisconsin was on a map. I could kind of point to it, but, what was Wisconsin? They had a team named the Green Bay Packers. At that time, I don't think the Packers were that great, so we didn't pay a lot of attention to it. So, he came back with this story about his hunting trip, and that led to me traveling here in 1998 for the first time. And I can tell you, it was exciting. I did a little research on Wisconsin. At the time, it was the still is actually, number one state in the country for big bucks. If you looked at Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, this was a state that was number one in all these different categories. And, quite honestly, after reading about Wisconsin for a whole year before coming here, I was pretty convinced there was a big buck behind every tree. And I still remember my first trip here driving in. We crossed through Chicago, and you hit Racine, and it's just, you're looking for deer. It was exciting. And at the time I was 19, 20 years old, and this was a whole new experience, from hunting on the East Coast. And we got up north, and the cabin was just kind of between Three Lakes and Eagle River. We were hunting on a little piece of private land, and super excited that first night, deer stories. We were bow hunting. It was probably roughly 1st of November, kind of right in the rut. And we get out there that first morning, and I don't think I was in a deer stand for half an hour, and I see a big buck, and that was it was bigger than anything I'd ever seen. And that hooked me. That was it. For me, Wisconsin was the place that I wanted to come hunt. And to make a long story short, on that first trip, one of the local boys that we were hunting with shot a big deer. We tracked it all over the property to get it. And, after the whole day of tracking the deer and dragging it out, I said, well, I don't know if we want to hunt here anymore. And he just killed the biggest one on the land. And somebody mentioned that there was national forest about 5 miles down the road. And next morning we got up, took a ride, and that started my love affair with the Nicolet National Forest. For the youth from Wisconsin, it's north of Green Bay, about 45 minutes. And we went over there and hunted. In the first year that I was here, I killed a beautiful 8-pointer. And it was everything I ever hoped it could be. And I was hooked. Wisconsin became a yearly trip. We came back. I mean, I would just count down the days till we could come here and bow hunt. I'd never gun hunted those early years, and just fell in love with this state. And I'll never forget, I met my wife, Erin. We've been married now for 20 years. And after dating for a couple months, I said, listen, if we're going to get any more serious, you have to know we're going to move to Wisconsin someday. So I figured the best thing I could do was bring her out here in December when it was really miserable, and show her all the good stuff. Make sure that, it wouldn't do any good if I showed her the warm weather and everything, and then brought her back here in December and moved here. So we came out in the wintertime, and very fortunate. She fell in love with it like I did. And we went on and had 2 children. And probably 6 years later, we moved here, 2012. And that was just a dream come true. I'll never forget that feeling of actually moving here and being a Wisconsin resident in the home of big bucks and the outdoors. And we purchased a small 9-hole golf course, a restaurant, and a bar, which, not realizing at the time, was going to make hunting a little harder. The time issue, and having young kids. But my wife also is a hunter. She grew up duck hunting, hunting pheasants, uplaying birds, deer. So for us, we do everything together that way. I have 2 girls now that are now 15 and 20 years old, that passionate deer hunters. My oldest daughter this year killed her first buck with a bow by herself. So that was pretty exciting. It was one of the biggest bucks in the neighborhood. So we've had this evolution of moving here and falling in love with this state. And I can tell you that we are now a true Wisconsin family. We host like I said, a restaurant. We understand the old fashions and the fish fries. And there's nothing more exciting living in Wisconsin than Friday before deer season, the gun opener. And I think that's one of the highlights of my year. Even though I love the bow hunting, the bow opener is exciting, all the different hunting, but that opener of gun season in Wisconsin is special. The people, the families that come in the restaurant, and they start at 9 in the morning, and the stories and the traditions that go behind that. And so that's kind of how I came here. And one of the things that happened along the way as we evolved into this journey was CWD. The wolves, things that I didn't see happening in 1998. And these things started to evolve, and they changed the trajectory of deer hunting in our state. And obviously, a lot of this show is going to be built around deer hunting because that's one of the biggest passions in this state. We're going to talk about fishing and other issues, but that's the driving force, I think, in the hunting industry in Wisconsin. And I came to realize that we have some real problems here. The reason that I moved here was to deer hunt, and I came to realize that we had a government agency, the DNR, that doesn't have the same aspirations that many of us have in this state. Their goals are not the same as ours. And I think when we moved here, Scott Walker was governor, and we had this deer council. It was Dr. Deer came in and raised some recommendations, and it was very controversial. And like a lot of states throughout the country, I mean, I living in New Jersey, Pennsylvania went through this. I seen, Michigan go through this, where, we change weapons, technology changes. But a lot of these states have these huge traditions, and Wisconsin's one of the more embedded ones in the traditions that we have. And the CWD scare was big. That was, all of a sudden, there was no baiting. They were killing thousands of deer in the central part of the state. People didn't know how to deal with this. This was going to ruin our deer hunting. It could eliminate deer forever. And so that was the first change. And I remember that first year coming out here where we weren't sure what we were going to run into, And like I said, baiting had been eliminated up north, which is a big way of hunting up there. And it had a massive impact on the economy. And I saw, half the hunters we normally saw, cabins being empty. So all of a sudden I came to realize the economic impact that deer hunting could have in our state, which is huge. And I think after that year, the legislature kind of went back and made some changes and said you can't outlaw certain stuff without, support from us because it can affect an industry too much. The second thing was the wolves. They came to be a huge issue and still are, just like CWD. And at first, it was one of those things that was kind of neat. We had wolves in Wisconsin, and that was something new. And I remember seeing one probably 12 years ago. It was unique. But like so many other things that happen when government's involved and agencies that we don't elect, the rules and the suggestions and the issues that they started out with and what they were going to work around changed. And, it started out where 350 wolves was the goal. And I think today, who knows, we have somewhere between 1,500 to 4,000, depending on who you talk to, who does the counting. So that's a big deal. We have an apex predator in our state that's causing issues. It's something that's going to have to be fixed. This is not just a Wisconsin problem. Wolves are a problem for a lot of the northern states. So these are all issues that started to pop up. And another thing that affected me was I hunted national forest up north, which I love public land. Growing up in New Jersey, we hunted public ground. I'm somebody that's very rarely hunted private property. I love getting out on the public ground and being able to find deer that anybody can find. And I've become very good at it. It's something that I enjoy, killing big bucks and that passion that, now we have cameras so you can get pictures of deer. And there's just so many cool aspects of public ground because it's like a surprise around every corner, And Wisconsin, I don't know how many of you know this, but Wisconsin is one of the best states for public ground. We have some of the most accessible public ground up north. Even in the south, there's some great ground in southern Wisconsin. But up north is literally thousands of miles of wide open national forest. So, we have this treasure trove for people that want to come here, for people that live here, that a lot of states don't have. If you live in Illinois, you don't have this. You're hunting 100-acre pieces of public ground, which is overrun. Whereas you can go up north even today and sit in the woods for a week and see nobody. So it's it makes for a tremendous opportunity. And with all that being said, I'm now seeing a huge reduction in the amount of people that are traveling to northern Wisconsin. And it's had an economic impact. And it's impacting the traditions that people have. I'm seeing people up north selling their cabins and going somewhere else because they want to take their kid up there, maybe put a little bit of corn out, sit and see a deer. And now you sit in the woods for 5-6 days and you don't see anything. So now they're not going out to eat. It's affecting the local economy. They're not spending money at the sports shops. That's affecting business owners. So this is having a massive impact, and this has led to why I decided the direction I've taken for the last 4 or 5 years. I got more involved with legislators and senators and people that make these decisions, and asking questions. Going back for a second, one of the things, the third thing that kind of was a big trigger for me is I hunted a piece of timberland south of Three Lakes. And I had a lot of big deer there, and all of a sudden I move here and I go up and it's all gated off. And you could still hunt it, but you couldn't drive through the roads. And I had called a Senator Mary Fetzkowski. She was somebody that had been pinpointed, and I was told that it was sold to a private group who was they had to keep it open for hunting, but they wanted to close all the roads and take it back to nature. And it took a lot of access away from some beautiful property. And what happened, now it's actually back and open again, which is awesome, thanks to some hard work by a few different individuals. But the idea behind that at the time was that they would take this back to the way it was 200 years ago, and there'd be no roads, and you had to walk. And it didn't really work because the roads were destroyed. The beavers took over, dammed everything up, and took the roads out. That took out roads. And then trees grew across. There was a fire there. And suddenly the local fire departments realized they couldn't access that property. And it was a huge problem. So there was some pressure put on, and now it's been sold back to a timber company, which it was before, and it's open to access. So that was a win. So I came to realize that the things that I love the most in Wisconsin were being impacted by legislative things being done in Madison that I didn't know anything about. And that scared me because, I mean, we just grew up for the last 150 years as hunters. Yeah, there's agencies, and yes, there's rules. But now we're seeing our agencies being taken over by people who don't think like us. They don't have the same objectives as us. Some of them are totally opposite of us. It's not just a little bit, it's a whole lot. They don't want to see any hunting. And so these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about as we go forward in this. For example, in Oregon, they have a ballot initiative that will outlaw hunting. It'll make it illegal and a felony to harm an animal. Could you imagine if that happened here? Like, you could say it'll never happen, but I think it can. As a bar owner, I remember 6 years ago when people said they could never close bars in Wisconsin. And if we remember COVID, they did. So to say that hunting, these hunting issues can't happen here is false. In the state I came from, my original home state, New Jersey, they have a push right now. They have a Sportsman outdoor committee or board, if you want to call it. And there is now a push to make half of that board be non-hunters. That's scary because those non-hunters will have a total opposite idea of how things should be run. And growing up in New Jersey, we had a bear hunt. And it was very successful. It was well participated in, and thanks to some governors now, that bear hunt's gone. So what's the next thing? Is it deer hunting? Is it, so these are things that I came to realize we have to be involved more than just the sport that we love. We have to get out there and we have to start to pay attention to things. Maybe some of us aren't as comfortable. A lot of us don't want to talk politics all the time. Being a bar owner, people always say, hey, we don't talk politics in a bar. But the reality of it is everything we love in the outdoors is determined by politics. Who do we put in office? How do they feel? And I think we really have to start paying attention to those we elect, no matter what side of the aisle it's on, that they have the same objectives as us. And so those are some of the things we're going to be dealing with as we go forward with this show over the next months. Obviously, one of the big things that ties into this at the moment is this is a big election season in Wisconsin. We're electing a governor. We're electing a lieutenant governor. We're attorney general. And I think every legislative seat is up. These are people that are going to influence hunting and fishing and, sports shooting, whatever it is in our world. And these are the things we love, and we want to make sure that it's the right people that do that. So we're going to be bringing in politicians over the next couple months that are running for office and talking to them about what are you doing? What are your thoughts on this? I think as sportsmen, we better start paying attention to what we're doing. And if we don't, we risk losing everything that we have. And we can say it'll never happen here, but unfortunately, I fear that it can. And if we don't do this right, it will. There's just too many scary things going on in the world today. And there's a whole lot of things right now that we all said would never happen that are happening. So I'm excited about this journey and ready to go forward and, just be able to give you guys some red meat information on this outdoor sports and legislative information of things that are happening and what we need to do. So let's move forward. So we've kind of teased out a little bit of why we're doing this and who I am. And I figure we'll kind of wrap up today with some information about some of the subjects we're going to be talking about and the political aspect of this and kind of tie it all together and give you guys an idea of where we're going with this. I'd like to see us be able to bring, weekly weekly reports. When we're in deer season, we're going to be bringing weekly rut reports from around the state. We're putting together a group of individuals that are hunters and passionate deer hunters, and we'll have some guests in relation to that. That right now, obviously, this is summer in Wisconsin, so I think we're sitting here about 5 miles from the bay, and we're going to be bringing live fishing reports from guides around the area. We have some excellent muskie guides down here in Green Bay. We have some unbelievable outdoor guides up on the lake right now for walleye and perch. Obviously, all the inland fishing that's going on. So we're going to be reaching out, getting some promo videos and some live interactions with you guys to bring in some red meat on those issues that are happening right now. And also some of the local bait shops, like what's selling, what are they using, what are they catching in what area. That's something we're going to be working on. We have a website, the Wisconsin Outdoor Alliance, that'll be putting out daily information and updates in that, so we can kind of get you guys involved in all these different areas, bring you information that'll be helpful as you're fishing and hunting up here in this area. This is going to be an exciting time. The next 3-4 months, we have the fishing season. We roll into bear season. We roll into deer season. Guys are out there right now baiting for bears, getting pictures. On our website, we'd like to have some trail cam pictures and ideas of what you guys are seeing, bringing some tips there. There's some really cool things at this time. This is, to me, this is the whole buildup into the outdoor season. Obviously, right now, fishing's great, but everybody's starting to think about trail cameras and deer hunting and getting their food plots planted. So, we're going to kind of try to tie all that together for you guys, bring you local information, local guys, people from Wisconsin. What are they doing? How are they doing it? Food plots are always a big subject. As we go into deer hunting, obviously we'll be talking a lot about the CWD issues. Those fall into the legislative issues, what works, what doesn't. One of the groups that I've been paired up with on this project is Hunter Nation. And we'll be talking about the wolf issue, how it affects the deer hunting, how it affects the populations, legislative issues that will affect how that goes. What are the chances that we have a wolf hunt this year? We're going to get into some of the controversial subject. If you're a deer hunter, like what kind of weapons are you using? Are you using a crossbow, a regular bow? How does that fit into the juniors out there? Obviously. In the hunting industry, we have to seriously look at our juniors. How do we get them more involved? What are we going to do with that? We're going to be talking about some of the great programs. I live in Oconto County, and this deviates a tiny bit from hunting, but we made that county a Second Amendment county, and part of that program was that we instituted school. I got myself tangled up here for a second. We instituted school trap shooting teams, and I think every high school in Oconto County now has a trap team, and that's getting kids out there shooting, and it is huge. I'm going to tell you, some of the kids are leaving other sports to join the trap team, and I think in Oconto they have somewhere near 30 kids, boys and girls, that are involved in that, and that's huge. So we're gonna touch on a little bit of that as we go along too, because obviously without guns and without weapons, we can't do what we want. So the gun issues tie into this a little bit. We come up, we only got about 3 months till the grouse opener. I have a wife that's a tremendous love of bird dogs and upland hunting that we'll bring in to talk about. She's training a new Springer right now. And so these are all things we're going to touch on. I mean, we're going at this all in kind of thing. And then we'll be bringing in politicians. I can tell you personally that there are several individuals running for office that are very passionate about the issues, the same issues that we are, and we're gonna grill them. We're gonna talk to them and see what do they want to do, how are they gonna help us, what are their plans. And part of this is that we not only have to ask those questions, but now we want to follow up. What are they doing? How are they doing this? Make sure, because one thing I found is that when you have people that are involved and they stay involved, you have a better chance of getting what you want. A lot of people will question a politician or talk to them about their passion, and then they kind of let it go, and then a year later, nothing happens. We're going to stay on this. And one of the big driving forces behind this is the fact that we have over 300,000 deer hunters in the state of Wisconsin that do not vote. And they might not vote, but they're very passionate about it. And they're also really passionate when they sit at a bar and have a beer or two talking about what they don't like. So we have to get that group in front of the group of people that can change what they want, make it better. And that's going to be something we're going to really work on going forward. Like, how do we How do we get those people the right information? How do we motivate them to want to be involved in the process, the election process? Because the reality of it is, as much as we just want to go climb in a deer stand or grab a fishing pole and check out the local report and see what we're going to go do, it is all affected by people that we elect. And this is an election year. So this will be, I think, one of the first of its kind where we tie together all the outdoors and politics. I've listened to a lot of outdoor shows that are great. I mean, there's some awesome guys around the country that I'd like to bring in an interview even on the show. But there's not too many, and there's a lot of political shows. Tons of political podcasts. Great one right here in our local area here, and but no one really ties the two together. And so this is what I'm going to do. My passion is the outdoors, and I've gotten to know the political scene. So we're excited about tying these two together and bringing you guys some really good hardcore information, on all these things that we love. And how do we make it better? How do we take it back to what it used to be, at the same time understanding the new technology and new rules that have to come into play with all this? And lastly, probably the subject that most of you would get the angriest about when we talk about is the DNR. What do we do with the DNR? There's some ideas out there. We have a guy running for governor right now named Tom Tiffany, who has some very, very good ideas about what he wants to do with the DNR. We want to talk to him about that. I think there needs to be changes. I've seen some audits that were done, and money's not always going where us as sportsmen would want it to go. Who's running those agencies? So we're going to talk about those two. There's some controversial subjects in there, and we're going to try to delve into all these as we go forward this summer and give you guys great information. At the same time, help you get some information about what you're doing that day, whether it's fishing or hunting or what have you. Once again, we'd like to thank you for being with us today. My name's Ken. This is the Sportsman's Voice. We're going to keep you on target. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.